In our news tonight, we had Joe Biden talking about the new executive orders he plans on pushing on the American people. And so Larry Pratt is here to discuss that with us. He is the executive director of Gun Owners of America. Larry, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So what do you think about Joe Biden's comments about gun confiscation?
Well, the vice president was talking about banning the reimportation of certain guns, of expanding the background check that is done for gun buyers, something they couldn't get done legislatively, which would have been unconstitutional anyway. They're going to be trying to do it through this executive order. And, of course, they probably can effectively, even though it's completely illegal, they can block the reimportation of certain firearms that were military rifles back in the day when I was still in grade school. That's the kind of technology we're talking about. And somehow, because these had been weapons of war, it would be irresponsible to have them on our streets. Well, we've got so much more modern technology that's readily available at Bass Pro. All they are doing is blocking the availability of guns to the American consumer so that he has less to choose from and higher prices to pay.
Well, and the thing is, it seems like it's like he's saying one thing and he means another.
Yes, he's become very adept at toning down what he's actually saying, what he's actually doing. The closest he came to really sounding like a flamer was in the run-up to the first of his elections to promise to fundamentally transform America. Well, I don't think most Americans understood the significance of what he was saying, but he was laying it out very plainly all the same that he's going to communize the country.
And when you say flamer, exactly what do you mean by that?
That's a very radical concept, to fundamentally transform the country. That means the country is vile. It has terrible things about it that need to be changed, need to be transformed. If you're talking about Senator Cruz or many of the other conservative leaders, they talk about restoring America to its greatness, to making it once again the city on a shining hill. None of that kind of rhetoric coming out of our president's mouth.
No, that's for sure. And, you know, he says that if the Congress doesn't agree with him, he's going to march forward anyway and take care of it. How do you feel about that?
That's a declaration of dictatorship. He's saying that the Constitution doesn't matter. The limits on presidential power, for that matter, congressional and judicial, don't matter. President's going to do what, quote, needs to be done. Of course, he defines what needs to be done. Saul Alinsky, his intellectual mentor via books, taught him. Basically, that's where he got the fundamental transformation of America. Saul Alinsky was a 20th century retailer of Karl Marx.
And when he says he's going to fundamentally change America, the thing is he really meant it. I know Obama really meant it. And people are going, well, he's not doing what he said he was going to do. But the thing is, if you take it for face value, he's doing it.
When he said that he was going to fundamentally transform, look at what he has done. He's taken over most of the financial industry and certainly student loans. That's all in government hands or in government control. Not that the banking industry wasn't for some time substantially influenced by the Fed, but be that as it may, he has taken it even further. Obamacare is clearly a socialization of the American health care system, and that is, by many accounts on both left and right, that is such a key part of our daily life and the freedoms that we enjoy, that if those are placed in the government's hands, we're really no longer a free people. And the president understands this. For those who think the president's a bumbling dolt and he's got a rotten economy, which he does, and that his regulations are strangling business, he understands all that.
Oh, sure.
That's his goal, of course. The communist understands that you have to destroy the existing system before you can rebuild paradise on the rubble that they have created in their revolution. And ever since Lenin in the last century, that's been their conceit, that somehow they will be able to destroy everything and build paradise, utopia, on top of the ruins.
And you brought up something very important, Obamacare. That program in itself just takes all privacy away from the American citizens. And the way they've broken down, well, the way they can get into your business, but basically they can tell you whether you can have a gun or not, they say, because of your mental health. And it seems like they're starting with our veterans right now and just attacking them.
You're going right to the point that gun owners of America saw and why we got into the fight against Obamacare. Unhappily, we're the only Second Amendment organization that has done so, but for the very reason you just pointed to, we understood this as a supremely important, significant attack against the right to keep and bear arms. Our privacy as Americans is to be violated by Obamacare, or if you'll permit me, I'd rather we called it zero care, because that's what it will actually offer in reality. You'll be entitled to everything and you'll get nothing, or you'll get it long after you're dead, or whatever the case might be. So our records in every area of life are going to be open to the government snoops electronically with their computers, pawing through databases. So they're going to have our medical records. And if they see that some veteran had a PTSD diagnosis 35, 40 years ago, maybe coming out of Vietnam, something like that, forget the fact that he went on to have a family, start and run a business, no criminal history whatsoever, no points on his driving record. In other words, a choir boy. They are already coming and taking the guns of people just like I've described. And it's only going to get worse once they get Obamacare, zero care, into operation. Then it's going to be Katie bar the door against gun owners. And the gun confiscation will be done, quote, in the name of your health. It's all for our own good.
Right. Yeah. So now the VA has already started this process. They have psychiatrists inside.
Under Bush, I might add. Under Bush,
but they're doing it now with a kickback. I'm not sure if you heard about that, but they're getting $3,000 a head per veteran that turns in their firearms, and they're pretty much not letting them leave the hospital. If they go in for an exam and they find out they have firearms, which is now a routine thing, they tell them that they're going to have to give up their firearm, and if they don't, they hospitalize them in the psychiatric unit.
And once they've been hospitalized, then they've got the medical predicate under the law to take away the guns.
Exactly. And they've recently lowered...
This is what we saw in Nazi Germany and in Soviet Russia. We saw the use of medicine not to heal, but as a political instrument. And when they do things like you just described in those veterans' hospitals, that is a return to Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia. That is just absolutely... we've got to make a stink about that. We've got to get members of Congress to defund the VA if they're going to act like that. None of these funds may be used to incarcerate, to forcibly, what's the right word, make a patient of a veteran, and describe the situation that we're interested in defunding. And if we take away the money, I guarantee you they won't do it, because none of these people are volunteers. They're all very well paid.
And what do you think it's going to take for the American people to step up and say something?
I wish I could answer that. It certainly, I would think in part, based on how much information they have. If they knew what the listeners of your show and your network knew, if they were getting the emails from Gun Owners of America, which, by the way, people can get for free at gunowners.org, then I think there would be already enormously greater pressure being applied to politicians from the grassroots. Right now, there's a real stirring among people to get rid of Obamacare. And when the Republicans talk about how that would be politically dangerous for them, I'll tell you what I think they might have been hearing during the break, during the August recess. If you don't defund Obamacare, then I'm coming for your job, because you will have become my enemy. You will have said that you can take away my freedom, and I'm having none of it. So you better go back there to Washington and tell that spineless John Boehner, the Speaker of the House, and his colleague Mitch McConnell, like unto him, that there's a revolt brewing. And if you don't get rid of zero care, we're coming for you in the next primaries. And we don't care if a Democrat gets elected as a result, because you guys will have done the Democrats' work. You will have owned zero care. So we're coming for you just to start the house cleaning with you.
And what do you think about the program that's inside of Obamacare for the civilian army? Do you think that's going to change before it gets completely funded?
Well, I think it's already in place. I think Janet Reno, with her 100,000 armed agents, has already organized and is operating the civilian armed force that would be comparable in force to the military. They are well on their way to having a military that's not got the tradition of America's officers, who by and large are men who respect the Constitution, and from those that I know, many of them would not just follow blindly any dumb order. But if you have people recruited outside that tradition and never experience that kind of culture within their service, then they won't be responsible. They won't have allegiance to the Constitution. They'll have allegiance to Janet Napolitano and or the president, but not the Constitution.
Well, and we need to be armed as citizens. That's part of our right. It's a shame that they're doing this confiscation across the United States right now, but it's happening more and more frequently to more and more people. And hopefully people are listening and starting to wake up and realize that they're just chipping away at our rights. And boy, when they take those arms, it sounds like it takes a few years to get your stuff back. I know the guy in California, Joe Mendez, was talking yesterday with Alex, and he said he's got, I think this is his 3rd year he's been waiting to get his weapons back. It's been at least 2, but I think it might be going into 3 years.
The authorities generally just love not to return guns. So if somebody has been charged with a crime where that results in their forced surrender of their firearms, upon acquittal, it's like pulling teeth to get the guns back. So it's not just this poor guy in California. This is the attitude that too many in authority have.
Well, in Larry and Joe's case also, they haven't really filed anything on him, which is insane. But this is all the time we have tonight. So I look forward to doing this again. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and let me again encourage people to look us up at gunowners.org and get on our free email alert list.
Absolutely. Sign up today.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Bye-bye.
So keep informed. Watch the InfoWars Nightly News regularly and find out more about what's happening to our Second Amendment. And join prisonplanet.tv today. Give your username and password to up to 10 people. I'm GiGi Erneta with the InfoWars Nightly News.
Now you can watch The Alex Jones Show live as it happens at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
More than 60 movies and documentaries all in one place at Infowars.com/show.
All they are doing is blocking the availability of guns to the American consumer so that he has less to choose from and higher prices to pay.
Well, and the thing is, it seems like it's like he's saying one thing and he means another.
Yes, he's become very adept at toning down what he's actually saying, what he's actually doing.
In our news tonight, we had Joe Biden talking about the new executive orders he plans on pushing on the American people. And so Larry Pratt is here to discuss that with us. He is the executive director of Gun Owners of America. Larry, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So what do you think about Joe Biden's comments about gun confiscation?
Well, the vice president was talking about banning the reimportation of certain guns, of expanding the background check that is done for gun buyers, something they couldn't get done legislatively, which would have been unconstitutional anyway. They're going to be trying to do it through this executive order. And, of course, they probably can effectively, even though it's completely the closest he came to really sounding like a flamer was in the run-up to the first of his elections, to promise to fundamentally transform America. Well, I don't think most Americans understood the significance of what he was saying, but he was laying it out very plainly all the same that he's going to communize the country.
And when you say flamer, exactly what do you mean by that?
That's a very radical concept, to fundamentally transform the country. That means the country is vile. It has terribly illegal. They can block the reimportation of certain firearms that were military rifles back in the day when I was still in grade school. That's the kind of technology we're talking about. And somehow, because these had been weapons of war, it would be irresponsible to have them on our streets. Well, we've got so much more modern technology that's readily available at Bass Pro